Alright, you're welcome to this particular video. We'll be going through some of the recent changes in Figma Config 2023, right? So the first of the change that we'll be going through is the auto layout. As you can see here, I basically tested it out and you could see how responsive it is right now. So the Figma auto layout, with the new changes, we can now design responsive design on Figma with different screens, without basically using any plugins, right? So let's get started. So we're going to just redesign this. And the first thing that you want to do is to redesign your card. So I'm going to redo this. So the first thing I did here was to design a card that is 250 by 200. So I'm going to pick up a rectangular box and make this 250 by 200 with a border radius of 20. So let's give that a little bit grayish color that we can see. All right, that's cool. Then bring in some text. Let me just duplicate this to say this is not what we are doing. So bring in some text here, just like the title and the whole stuff here. So I'm going to hold this together and make this auto layout. So you can add auto layout right here. Then we have the auto layout there. So let's give it a fill, white fill. We can just surround it with a padding of 20 thereabout. Now, the thing now is, because we give it auto layout, this particular card won't be responsive. So the first things first, the individual card themselves, they need to be responsive. So if I drag this, you could see that it's not responsive. But this one that I already pre-designed here, if I drag it like this, you will see that it is already responsive, right? So the first things first is to make the individual element responsive before making the group element responsive. So once we do this, auto layout will not be able to make it responsive, because the moment you add auto layout, you realize that you no longer have constraint, right? So we're going to take the auto layout that we initially added off so that we could add constraint to this particular image, then we can make it responsive. So I'll add auto layout to this image now. So I'll go ahead, now I'll add constraint, left and right constraint, will make it responsive. Then, because I also want to be able to, just in case it is resized vertically, it also should be responsive. Like this now, if we resize it horizontally, it is still responsive, but if we resize vertically, it is not responsive. So let's resize it vertically to make it responsive. So I'm going to add constraint top and bottom as well to also make it responsive. So right now it is responsive vertically and it's responsive horizontally, but this text is not responsive vertically. So put this one constraint down just like this, then this goes, then everything is now responsive no matter how you drag it, right? So everything looks really good. No matter how you drag it, this particular card is now responsive. So now that we have the responsive card, we can now make the group thing actually responsive. Now, I'll delete this because the next thing you want to do is just to add image. So once you've done this, you can now duplicate it to have several images just like this one. The same thing goes to this one too as well. This is just basically duplicate, right? Just duplicate. Then same thing goes with this one too as well. So now we have this 3 cards that's basically duplicates that will have responsive. Now, the next thing now is how can we make them responsive as a grid. So I'll select everything together now. Now I will now add auto layout. So once I add auto layout will make it responsive. Let us make it a little bit closer with this here. So let's give it a field so that we can just see what we are working on. All right. Oops. This is good now. This is okay. Right. I will give it padding of 40 thereabout, just for the fun of it, right? All right, so now what we want to do now is to make this thing responsive in such a way that once we drag it like this, it should be able to adjust, right, using our auto layout and the new changes. Now, 2 things you will notice in the changes on Figma is that we are now able to add what we call the minimum width. You could see minimum width and maximum width. Now, the minimum width and maximum width can only be added when that particular element is an auto layout element, right? If you've not applied auto layout, you'll not be able to add minimum or maximum width to it. So now you see all of this now. So we could add minimum and maximum width to this particular element. So what we are going to do now is to add minimum and maximum width to all of these elements so that we could actually make it responsive. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to click here. So once I click here right now, I'll be able to add minimum and maximum width. The moment I add minimum and maximum width, everything should actually be responsive. I'll click here. I'll say minimum width. I want the minimum width to be 280. So it's not going to reduce less than 280. So I'll say 280. So we'll do the same thing here as well. Come here, minimum width 280. Come here too as well. We'll do the same thing too as well. Minimum width 280. All right. So once we have that minimum width 280, the individual elements inside, then the exterior element, which is the frame that covers everything, instead of us to give it this particular direction, horizontal direction, we're going to give it what? Wrap. So now two things has been introduced, wrap and minimum or maximum width. So we'll give it wrap. So with wrap now, everything will now be responsive. Take a look at, right? So this is really pretty, right? So with wrap, we could just have our responsive design like this. So you can even go ahead and also specify a minimum width for this. For example, now you don't want it to go lesser than this. So for example, I don't want it to go lesser than this is such a, we don't want something like this, right? We could also specify maximum width for this too. So we could just go ahead and say, okay, our minimum width, let's click here. Let's add minimum width. Our minimum width for this particular element now should be 280 plus 80. All right, so around 360. So our minimum width would be 360. Then our maximum width, let's see, our maximum width should be like this 1010, something like that. But let's leave the maximum width. So you could see now I cannot go lesser than this, but I can still go way more than this. So I can choose to add maximum width too as well. So I can come over and say add maximum width 1010. Right, so with this now, this cannot be resized higher than this and can also not be resized lesser than this, right? So this makes the whole thing really responsive. So that is how you work with the new changes on Figma, the minimum width, the maximum width, and as well as the wrap. Now, one of the changes I observe again in this Figma is the area of space between, right? So let's do it. So let's say we have an element like this where we have one frame like this and we have another frame inside of it like this, and we have this also like this, right? And in such a way that we don't want to use constraint, but want to be able to use auto layout to resize it like this, right? So previously, if we have auto layout in this particular element, now one of the things that we would have done is to click here, and right here we'll be able to see something like padding and space between, stuff like that. So it's no longer there. That has been removed. Now for you to have space between, you could see it's still not responsive because this element is hidden somewhere, right? So for you to have space between, now all you just need to do is come over here and add auto. So I'll come over here, I'll specify it as auto. Then once I have auto there, then this works, and it works as space between as we normally have it in CSS. If you have CSS background, or in the previous way it was on Figma, right? So that is another changes I observed, and I just decided to bring it up right here. Now another amazing recent change again that was done is the area of present and preview. So if you click here, you observe something that previously we used to have this particular button here. It could be preview, where we'll want to view what our design basically. So let me come back here. If I click this frame, I can come over here and click on preview here. It's open a new tab for me, just like this. So, but with the changes, you observe that we now have two things. We now have present or now have preview. So what's the difference between present and preview? So present is how we used to have it in previous time, while preview allow us to preview it on that same window, right? So if I come over here and I click on preview, what happens is that this window just appear for me, and it is quite quick. And I this amazing shortcut as well that you can always use, shift space. So if I just hit on hold shift and space on my keyboard, it just basically appear. I can preview it without presenting it, right? So I think it's a very good one just to quickly see what you're designing without you previewing it, right? It's an amazing change that we have there. Now, apart from that, they also introduced what they call the dev mode, right? So dev mode has two major things. Number one, if you're designing something, you could add a frame and let the developers that you guys are collaborating with know that that particular element is ready for design, for development. So we'll go over here under our frame, we'll choose section, then we'll draw a section around it here. So this is how section used to be. Let's make it a little bit grayish. This is how sections used to look like, right? Something like this. Now we could just go ahead and type our section here, but for us to let the developers know that it is ready for development, what we'll do now, you see this little icon over here, mark as ready for dev. So all we just need to do is just to click it. So once we click it, we'll now see that it's ready for development. So when developers are working on this particular Figma project with us they will know what section is actually, or what design is actually ready for development, right? So we can also switch between dev mode and design mode here. So previously we used to have design, prototype, and inspect here. So there is no more design, prototype, and inspect here. What you now see is now dev mode here. So we can switch to dev mode. So once we switch to dev mode, you can now see the element that ready for development. You can now see what's ready for development. And when we click this, you will see an amazing development mode that shows the spaces between it, 40, 40, 30. And I think this is really, really nice. And developers can easily just copy this particular code, go to their CSS and paste it, hasten the development process as well. And there is now Figma for VS Code, whereby it automatically just brings the code into your Figma if you install the plugin in your VS Code as a developer, right? So I think this is another amazing feature that was introduced too as well. Now, the fourth feature that I would love to talk about is variables and conditional prototyping. Now, the variables and conditional prototyping is not necessarily available for people that are on the free plan. So if you're on the free plan, there's little or there's little things, let me not say nothing, there's little things that you could do. So because of that, I'm actually recording this particular video on an account that I have that is a free account, so that those of us on a free account will be able to see the restrictions that we have as people that are on free accounts, right? So let's test that out. So for us to test the variable out, variable is really, really cool. I love it. Now let me just draw a simple frame here and draw a text here. And let me just call this particular text greetings, for example. So I will say greetings, right? Let me make it a little bit bigger so that we can see it very well. Let me just make it a little bit bigger, bold. Right. So let's call this particular text greeting. So we could easily add variable. For us to add variable, you want to ensure that nothing is selected on your workspace. Then you go to local variables here. You click on this particular icon, open variable. Once you do that, already have a variable called greetings before. So let me just right click and delete it. So let me delete this. So you will see something like this. You can go ahead and click on create variable. So click on create variable. So they have like 4 different variables that you could create. You have color variable, we have number, string, and boolean. So boolean is basically true or false variable that allow you to hide or show something. But let's test the string variable. So you click on string variable, you're going to have the name of the variable. So let's call it greetings, right? Greetings here. They can give it the value. For now, we can call it, let's call it hello, right? Hello greetings. So now, this is one of the value you could give it. You could also name this visitor. You could have a variable that have different nodes. We have like visitors, users, and so on and so forth. So variable is basically the way variable works during programming, right? But now in design. So Figma is doing a good job trying to like bridge the gap between design and development. So right here now, you'll be able to add another node. Now, we cannot add another node if you're on a free plan. So if you're in a free plan, like the way I am on this particular account, you can add another node. For you to add another node, Figma will be asking you to upgrade, which I think is something you should do. You should definitely upgrade to enjoy the flexibility that comes with variables and that also comes with conditional prototyping, right? But for now, you cannot basically do that on the free plan, right? So let's close this. So one way you can apply this particular variable to any text on your design is to click on the text, and inside your text panel here, you will see this little icon that looks like this. Anytime you see this particular icon, it stands for applied variable. You also see it too as well, even sometimes inside other elements. So let's click this. We'll see apply variable, click on it. It will actually look all libraries, greetings, you see there. You click on it, automatically that particular value changes, right? So if we go back to our local variable and we see our greetings, it will change it here. This works a little bit like component, but on a larger side. So you can either change this particular hello to something here. We'll go, okay, let's add world to it, right? And save it. See, it actually just updates. So any place that we will actually use this, it can also update in those places, and we can change it in our local variable. So this is really nice. This is not necessarily like components, but if you have the upgraded accounts, you'll be able to enjoy how beautiful this particular new changes is again. And when it comes to prototyping, for example, we'll move to prototyping, and let's assume I want to add an interaction click, and you see that we have what we call the on click, on drag, while hovering, while pressing, keeper. So these are all different kinds of prototyping that we are already used to, right? And different things that we could add, right? So one other thing that was introduced, you could see scroll to. So once you generate this prototype, you could see conditional prototyping, right? So once you click it, you're able to see there is scroll to, there is open link, there is amazing stuff. All of these things, of course, open link now allow us to like attach external link to our prototype, which I think is really good, right? There is conditional rendering and set variable. So with this now, we could actually create a counter and also change the value of our variable when we prototype. But if you're on a free account, you will not be able to do this too as well, which I think is really an amazing feature, right? Available to those on paid accounts too as well, right? So apart from the set variable and conditional prototyping, those are the things that are the recent changes that can be done with a paid account that cannot be done on a free account. So if you have a paid account, go ahead and try that out. Generally, I think these changes are amazing, and we're looking forward to so many other amazing things that we could do. And also Figma has also been able to acquire another firm called diagrams that enable us to add some form of AI interaction inside of Figma. So subsequently, we'll be seeing how AI can also come into play while designing and working as design assistants for us, right? So that is it for now. So let me know in the comments. Let me know, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments if there's any other thing you guys would like me to cover. Have a wonderful day.